The GIM Channel podcast, bringing you the big picture on geoscientific information management through interviews and discussions.
Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Acquire's podcast, the GIM Channel. I'm Sarah Mitchell, your host of the GIM Channel, and today I'm joined by Misha Stacker. Hi, Misha.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Our guest speaker today is Steve Mundell, Acquire's Director of Product. His research interest in information management for the natural resources industry guides the product development for Acquire's next generation geoscientific information management software, or what we call GIM. Hi, Steve.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Steve, tell us a bit about your background. You've been at Acquire a long time, since 2002, which is an eternity almost in technology companies. What did you do prior to this, and how has your journey developed with Acquire?
Sure. Yeah, I guess coming out of university, I graduated as a geologist, and I joined MIM, which is now Glencore up in Mount Isa. And at the time when I joined, we were in a period of technology change, and at that point, I had a great opportunity to start to learn about new technologies, particularly in mine planning, that were coming on board. And I just fell in love with the whole concept around trying to make the technology, give the outcomes that we needed for doing our day-to-day tasks. And so in through that, I just got this real sense of wanting to be part of that journey with technology. And so fortuitously, an opportunity came to join METEC, as it was back then in 2002. So I joined METEC and worked through the mine planning side of that business. And then going through that, Acquire as a technology was growing, and there was a point in time where we had made the decision to make Acquire our number one focus. And at that point, I moved across from work on the mine planning side of the business into, I guess, technical sales with Acquire. And that really gave me a really big insight into a customer's perspective around the needs and of the business. And from there, I went through into more research type activities and understanding the customer need and growing that onto the position that I hold now and working with the strategy of our products.
Steve, what have you noticed as the biggest challenges for geoscientific information management, especially when you first started in the industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing back then was moving from in-house solutions to commercial solutions. And I think, going back to the experience with MIM, which, that was the period that we're going in, was going from in-house type solutions to commercial solutions, where it was more of the core business of the mining company to deal with mining and then to use commercial products out there to manage other things. And so that was, I guess, a story that can be told across many organisations. So back at that point in time when I joined Acquire, and then that was the big sort of push, was the big challenge in moving from, the tinkering and the building of in-house systems. We're all geologists, we love to tinker, to more commercial solutions where there's greater knowledge out there to really solve these problems, so that as geologists we could get back to doing our job. I think, the experience with Mount Isa was quite good because it gave such a for myself anyhow, gave a great foundation in the importance of information. They had a really great philosophy around that, and it was something that I've never really seen elsewhere before in an organisation. So it's something I experienced and never seen replicated anywhere else of just how they worked with it and their devotion to making it all work.
Excellent. Now, what do you see as the main challenge facing the natural resources industry right now?
So I guess we love to talk about people, process and technology, so I think that's probably the best sort of model to use to sort of answer this one or try and address this one. So from a people perspective, I think one of the big challenges there is moving towards a knowledge system. So as we're moving forward to more, complex situations and dealing with more, complex environments to work in, is that the knowledge held by people and through the time that they experience with these things is going to become more and more important. So actually, building a better culture around people and retaining people is going to be a big thing. So, and I guess that goes on to keeping good people. So going through the downturn, the newspapers are abound of stories of good people who have left the industry for good and not coming back. And I was recently just reading a story about in Alberta, where there's been the dehumanisation of the recruitment process, and that's really turning some people off the industry. So I think from a people challenge at the moment, that's one of the big things is around that. In terms of process, one of the big challenges is true cross-functional integration. So it's actually getting everyone to work together as a team rather than separate silos. So that's a huge thing that I think everyone recognises as a big problem, probably a cultural problem to change within organisations. And as well with the process is uprooting the past processes. So, we're seeing lots of changes in technology, but, our processes have built up over many, many years, so they're quite deep-rooted and very difficult to change. So that's a big challenge, is how to actually make those big changes which seem to cut across the entire organisations. And then from a technology perspective, the challenge is seeing the full stack required to achieve or realise digital innovation. So we can see all of the bright and shiny things out there that we want to do or that we would like to do that could help us out in our situation and help us get the objectives that we want, but need to step back and look at the full stack required to enable that and make it happen.
Steve, you mentioned there digital innovation. Earlier this year, you delivered a presentation on data and the digital mine with Osmine. What are your views on how we leverage the digital mine?
Okay, so I guess there's two things, and it actually comes back to a previous point around process. So process change is a big one. Okay, so and that process change is, I guess, more of a motivation to be able to see if there was deep seated change in a process. So look at a total systems perspective and say, well, how can we actually make this work better for the entire organisation rather than individual silos? So that's one area, and the other area is just connectivity between systems. So digital innovation just lends itself towards there being more, more technologies and more providers out there, and to make that work, you need to have good connectivity between each of those. And also what it allows is that there's, innovation starts in small, spots and then grows. And so if you have an ecosystem where you're able to, help these things connect together, it's going to just provide that environment that they can now blossom and grow.
It's interesting that in a lot of your response, you're talking about technology, but really only as it applies to people and people, their role in this and the importance of always keeping people in that process. Now, you obviously spend a lot of time researching trends, not only in technology, but software and mining. And I know that it's you're looking at things from a global perspective as well. You're based in Australia, but you travel a lot to other regions. What are the trends that you're seeing right now that are catching your interest?
Yeah, that's a good one. But I think one of the things that's really getting my attention at the moment is methods to try and extract new or useful data products from existing sources. So it's all about trying to make the data really work for you. So we've got these big mountains of data that are there available. So how can we actually extract more from that and into useful products that can be used through our process to make decisions? And so that's really the things that I'm very interested in at the moment. And there's lots of examples around here of some that are doing this type of work. So a particular example, of course, is around images. So everyone takes these things, but how do you actually use them to generate some or generate new data products off them that can be used through the process rather than just images that you look at and observe. So processing those sorts of things as a very great interest of mine at the moment.
You talk about things like connectivity between different systems, both hardware and software, I assume that you're talking about, and also about the value in data. Do you think that the natural resources industry is really viewing data as an asset yet?
I think so. I think that there's a growing sort of trend towards that, and you hear stories there of organisations having demonstrations or seeing things come out and saying, wow, you've actually given me an answer to this. In the past, it's taken me 5 years to get that answer, and you've done it in 20 minutes. But then they delve a little bit deeper into it and go, well, actually, to get that answer consistently, what's actually feeding into that, and that's the data. So I think there is this realisation that to make all of this work, data needs to flow between the systems, and so there is this growing trend and growing, acknowledgement of the importance of data.
Now we're in a downturn in Australia. We're getting to the bottom of that. Other parts of the world have not experienced that downturn. We know that South America is starting to see some softening of the copper price, and that commodity is probably going to lead to a dip in that region. So when we look at the global mining industry, what new technologies are you seeing emerge that could help adapt to the current market, especially as you're in a downturn?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the technologies around trying to improve the consistency of decision making are other technologies that are going to help. So those systems that are able to, reduce the variability in decision making, and talk around this with a lot of people in the industry, is that they sort of have a view there, or a vision that no matter whether you give the same information to any person, is that they're able to come up with the same decision. Then you can actually bank on those results rather than having this large risk around them actually being achieved. So even then, at that point, the 1%ers of improvements actually make a difference because they're going to be real. So I think it's decision support types of technologies that reduce the variability in decision making are the ones that will help the industry adapt to these conditions. Also, what those do is actually, they can act as a sink for the knowledge within the organisation, so that you're able to have some more consistency over time, so you're able to build that knowledge base over time.
Excellent. You spoke earlier about your interest. You got interested in data early in your career. Why do you think geoscientific information management is so important?
Yeah, well, that gets down to the core of what we do, and really, the reason why I see GIM is important is that it's really an enabler for downstream value creation. So it's this key part in connecting all of the disparate data sources. So if we look at the full value stream of coming up with a decision, is that there's a flow of capturing the data and then building a model and then making decisions off it, that type of thing. And so with geoscience information management, it's an important aspect to bring together the people, process and technology parts of bringing that information together consistently and enabling these downstream processes to happen with consistency. And I guess it allows that innovation to happen also in downstream processes as well, because you have this source of information that you can actually rely on and do something with, rather than building an innovation based on a guess. So so geoscience information management for me is important as an enabler for downstream processing.
I love the concept of building innovation on a guess. I hadn't heard it put that way, but I think that probably happens quite a lot. Yeah. Now, 2016, Acquire celebrated 20 years in business, and again, that's a really long time for a software company. And Acquire's been focused on GIM. So what is your vision for GIM for the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think that's looking at how the industry changes. So whether it's across each of the different segments that we work with, where the mineable oil sands and minerals and coal, is that there's some consistency there around the way that things are going, and I guess it does relate to the methods that organisations go down to extract information. But of course, up until now, there's been a lot of similarity in the processes of way that information is collected. But there's this point in time now particularly going through this downturn and this appetite for innovation, so to speak, of looking for new ways to sense the ore body and get this picture of what's beneath the surface. So I guess what I can view there with GIM is actually evolving from less of these manual type of process of the geologist actually going out there and collecting the information per se, and doing what we do and what we're trained at university, to more working with data that's coming out of those to come up with a decision. So that's, I guess, where I see GIM is that it's going to become a centre where there's a smaller time gap between the decision-making process from collecting it to actually making a decision. So in the past, it might have been years, down to almost transactional type of levels as that flow of information coming through. So that's one thing. So there's the velocity of information coming through, the amount of information coming through is going to increase exponentially around that. So GIM is going to become, I guess, a pretty critical part of trying to channel all of this information through to these systems. So that's what I can see the big change between now and then.
Excellent. Now, what do you think the mine of the future looks like?
Yeah, it depends on whether you're talking terrestrial or extraterrestrial. I think that's a good part. So at a recent Unearthed at the Unearthed Demo Day a few weeks ago, there was a presentation by I think it was Deep Space Industries, where they were looking at mining asteroids and mining in extraterrestrial bodies. And I guess that's a really interesting thing to look at, is going, well, where's that going to go? So I haven't really got too much of an opinion on that one, to be quite honest. So if I stick more to the terrestrial kind of areas, the mine of the future is going to be, I feel, impacted more greatly on social and environmental factors than anything else. So that's going to drive the big changes. And so we can see in the recent news there of those, how decisions at that government level are moving more towards renewable energies and that sort of thing. So that affects the whole value chain. So I can see that the mine of the future is, I guess, a lot less invasive and a lot more efficient than what we have now. So the current mining processes are very similar to what we've had for many years. So there'll be different mining processes where there's, I guess, less impact on the environment. So to actually bring that on, that's a whole different skill set of people within the mine. So instead of having the traditional scientists, there'll be other types of scientists, I guess, there that are running the systems. Even now, when we look at the trends, is that data scientists and what have you are almost becoming a commonplace within mining organisations to actually make sense of the data. So that trend, I see, will continue into the future of that. So short of trying to talk about all of the different types of equipment and technologies and what have you that will be there, I think it's more looking at what the shift is in the type of mines that will be there, then looking at the technology that will support them. So I guess I can see in the future, at least on Earth, a lower scale, I guess a lower impact view of mining to sort of meet with probably a more environmentally conscious society.
That's excellent. You're the first person to introduce extraterrestrial mining in this podcast, so maybe that's something we'll look at in another episode. But thank you so much for joining us today, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Misha.
Thanks, Misha.
Thank you.
That's it for today. If you've enjoyed our discussion, please tell your friends and colleagues about the podcast, which you can find on the Acquire newsroom at acquire.com.au.
You've been listening to Acquire's podcast, the GIM Channel. Find us at acquire.com.au.